Sibuluke sichaba Sichabasa Yesu Sichabasa Africa Makubenjalo Makubenguna pakate Kute kubenguna pa Makube 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 Makubenjalo Kute kubenguna pakate Kute kubenguna pakate Amandla Amandla Umhlaba ngowethu Enkosi kubantu bendlu yenkokheli abalapha our traditional leaders ezilapha phakathi kwethu ndiyabulisa iyabulisa iEFF siyabulela bazali abalapha siyabulela deputy president ngoku siyayazi into kokuba singakhange sithethe nongaphezulu kutshiwo kuthiwa inkokheli enothixo yeyona nkokheli iyawubunikwa ubulumko ngoba iyamoyika uThixo iEFF iyamoyika uThixo kwaye iyamazi uThixo kwaye iyamthobela ngoku ndizawucela utata ophakathi kwethu utata uNondala utata umfundisi uNondala okhokhele ibandla laseZion azosivulela ngomthandazo ngutata uMtipha ngutata uBhaye ngomthandazo ndiyacela into kokuba siphakame ngeculo ukwenzela into kokuba tata ukubune nkonzo unengoma yakho ufuna sihlabele singayihlabele kuthiwa niyayazi bantu basesabalele into ingoma katata
enkosi kumama wethu othe nam ngelithuba mandizoma ngaphambili. Ndibulisa kwinkokheli zonke zalombutho ezithe namhlanje masizohlangana kwelikhaya. Awukho bani ebesazi, kodwa ke masibulele nje uba silapha sonke. Masithathe lithuba ke sicimele kuthi ke torho nobani ke oqonda kakacimeli kwindawo kuyo asincedise namhlanje. Amen. Egameni loyise, egameni lonyana, Dahubawo, silapha somandla kulo elikhaya, mthetheleli wezulu. Silapha Mesia oyingcwele ngokwentando kumkani kakumkani yamntana wakho othe ngale mini wathanda okokuba naye makazibonakalise ubukho bakhe. Yiyo loo nto uba usithi xa sizawuqala lo msitho masichukumise kuwe ngasentla, ngoba somandla thina ngokwethu ayikho into esinokuyenza singakhange sizuze amandla kuwe. Mnika amandla ke ba nomntwana wakho ozawuthi aqhube le nkqubo, ukuze ayiqhube somandla ingenguye, singaboni yena thina, sibone wena kumkani. Ngethemba ke Mesia oyingcwele lokuba nabangazanga kufika kule ndawo asibasoli somandla, akwaba kwezo ndawo bakuzo banoba lapha ngokomoya. Ngaye uKristu inkosi yethu. Amen. Singaphakamanga njalo ndicela njena ke ndidlule ncwadi yethu uIsaya 53 komqolo ke ohla enhloko. Apho amazwi athi uphuma yena njengegatya kwilizwe elingumqwebethu. Ithi ke ngoku ekugqibeleni ngubani na ke okholweyo ludaba lethu. Ingalo kaYehova ityhileke kubanina. Amen. Ndifuna ukuthi ke bazali asimazi thina lo tata usihlanganise apha namhlanje intsobi yakhe. Siyalazi nje igama lakhe ngokuva koma. Nam ke bendimbona uShivambu lo, kodwa namhlanje ndimbona ngamehlo enyama. Hallelujah. Ndifuna ukuthi ke kulamazwi athi umama xa ezala umntwana akamazi umntwana wakhe uba uzaba yintoni, kodwa kuthi apha ekukhuleni silapha namhlanje sithetha ngengotya bantakwethu yethu enguKhrisani kuba kuthiwa kwenzelwa yena naxa siza kufa, kodwa ndithi maninyathele ezalwa ngabantu futhi esibaziyo nathi. Amen. Kodwa into esasingayazi okokuba uzaba yintoni na uphuma njengegatya kwilizwe elingumqwebethu. Enkosi ma.
Inkosi tata. Uzawubulelwa ngentla tatam. Uzawubulelwa ngentla. Uthi utata umtipha. Uthi uphuma yena njengegatya. Sizalibona igatya namhlanje. Siphilele CIC, siphilele. Siphilele CIC, siphilele. Siphilele Deputy President of EFF, siphilele. Long live the undying spirit of Tatu Thembisilani. Long live. Long live the undying spirit of Tatu Thembisilani. Long live. Enkosi bazali bam, enkosi indlu zenkosi ezilapha siyabulisa, iyabulisa EFF. nazo masizikhankanye ezilapha namhlanje. uChris Hani sikhokhelwe kuyo, sinosihlalo wethu ekufuneka azosamkela, amkele zonke ezi regions zilapha ukwenza into okokuba zikhulule ibhatyi, ziyazi ba ziyamkeleka kule region katata uChris Hani. Igama lakhe ozasamkela usihlalo wale region chairperson walapha kule region ufighter Kani, nguchawe isiduko sakhe kodwa utshatile. Over to you, Fighter Kani.
Happy birthday Tatu Chris Hani, happy birthday. Ngiyabulisa kubahlali isikhundla. Ngiyabulisa kubafundisi, kubathanjiswa abakhoyo apha endlini. Ngibulise ngokukhethekileyo kusekela mongameli we-EFF namhlanje oqale ukuzawutyala imbewu ngokutsha kumhlaba katata uChonyane. Sithi ngokunyathela kwakhe apha bahlali balapha kusabalele, bahlali balapha endulwini, bahlali basentsika yethu, kufike umtheleli nimamelisise ukuba yintoni le ayiphetheyo. Bantwana abancinci ninemibuzo eninayo. Ngubani utata uChris Hani simbone emifanekisweni? Izophendulwa ke namhlanje. Xa ndizawuhlala phansi ndiyafutho awayephila kuwo utata uChris Hani ngulo we-EFF. Ndifuna nithathe igama nililahle kude, ele ANC, ele SACP nele EFF ningalibeka ecaleni, kodwa mamelani kakuhle imigomo awayesoloko engqisha phezu kwayo. Mamelisisani imigomo awayesoloko eyikhwaza xa enikwa iqonga. Siyacela ke nikhululeke nimamkele usekela mongameli. Siyacela kunini nabancinci ningangxoli xa ethetha ukwenzela into ba nizophuma ninolwazi. Sekela nobhala ndiyabulela.
Elilizwe tata chuchu, elilizwe labantu abamnyama amandla. Kuthiwa masikhulule ibhatyi nguchairperson. BCM siyabulisa, BCM siyabulisa amathole. Siyabulisa Qaqathu region, siyabulisa OR Tambo, siyabulisa Nelson. Ezi regions ezikhoyo apha namhlanje ngale mini katata uThembisile Hani ongutata uChris Hani enizawuyazi into kokuba kutheni na. Ngoku ndiza kwamkela usihlalo, sizawunikeza usihlalo wephondo. Simbiza ke apha ku-EFF siba nento sibizayo kuqala kwinkokheli zethu bendithe kune-CCT deployees. Asibabizi nje sithi fighter, sithi commissar. Siyahlonipha kwa-EFF ngokwekushiyana ngokukhokhela kwethu. Ngoku sizawuphakamisa i-PCT chairperson, uchairperson wase-Eastern Cape, uchairperson wale province aze apha azosamkela kweli phondo kukhomisa Yazini Thechana. Ngubhele isiduko sakhe naye utshatile, uza kuziphakamisa ngengoma yakhe.
Mandla. Mandla. Long live Julius Malema, long live. Long live Julius Malema, long live. Long live Julius Malema, long live. Long live the undying spirit of Krizani, long live. Long live Deputy President FLOYD SHIVAMBU, long live. Thank you very much, comrades. Ndiyabulela, Deputy Secretary. Andina msebenzi mkhulu. Noma ndimkhulu kangakanani na. Kodwa nje before ndicacise into ba ngobani abalapha phambi kwenu. Ndicela nje ukuthi kwinkosi kwizibonda esizihambeleyo before kule ndawo yakwaSabalele. Siyanibulisa ebakhoyo namhlanje, siyanamkela. Sinibulela kakhulu ngokuba nivumele izizwe zenu enizikhokheleyo into okokuba nazibe lapha phambi kwethu namhlanje. Siyanibulela ngoba anifikanga nasikhetha nathi lo mbutho obomvu. Nithe kasifike ezindlini zenu navula nathi ngenani i-EFF nasiniki opportunity yokuthetha nabantu kwindawo ebesifike bekhona abantu khona. Apha ke phambi kwenu nguchairperson wephondo le-Eastern Cape. Igama lami ngiyazi nithetyana. Ndingubhele. Ndizawintroduce nje kube nesekela lakhe. Igama lakhe nguZoleka Qotwe, intombi yenu yalapha eKrizani, uzalelwa apha eTsomo. Ecaleni kwakhe kube ngukoba ihlanzeni baniphazama. Kodwa ke ulilungu le-EFF ukhona kwisigungu esiphezulu esilawulayo kuzwelonke le-EFF. Apha ecako Deputy President ngasekunene kunokomisa Ntokozo Hlonyane. Kukhona ekuthiwa yi-Central Command Team, kube khona ekuthiwa yi-War Council. Apho ke kuthathwe zona zigqibo zakhe zaphezulu ezingasoze sikwazi nathi uzithatha kule level yethu komisa Ntokozo. Apha phakathi kwethu kunamalungu we-PCT, kukhona amakhansela asuka kwiingingqi ngengingqi zeliphondo laseMpuma Koloni. Kukhona amakhansela asuka eBuffalo City, kuzawuphakanyiswa nje izandla maqabane. Kula masipala ekuthiwa nguBuffalo City kukhona amakhansela akhoyo apha awe EFF, because EFF inamakhansela nayo ningacimba inawo. Pha eBuffalo City sinamakhansela ayi-13, ndicinga into yoba akhona apha namhlanje wonke. Sikhona iKrizani nayo le ekulo masipala wenu. Akhona amakhansela kudala ebhizi besebenza nawo, singena nawo door to door. Mhlawumbe abanye babo bazi-introduceile kuni athi umuntu balapha phakathi kwenu nabo. Ndikhe ndabona ne-OR Tambo noba babina okanye bathathu, kodwa abanye basale ngemva nabo ngamakhansela we-EFF. Abanye abakwazanga ukuphumelela abasuka ko-Port Elizabeth, Nelson Mandela, Alfred Nzo, Joe Gabi, because i-organization yenza umsebenzi kweza ndawo. Sithi ke masiyicacise into yoba i-EFF ikhona namhlanje apha kwaSabalele. Sikwamkela, samkele ke nonke nikhulula ibhaji njengoba setshile uDeputy uChairperson we-region. Utshile wathi khululani ibhaji kusekhaya, nathi sizikhulule ngoba lokhu kudala sikulo mhlaba wenu. Siyanibulela kakhulu ngokuza kwenu. Ndizawunikezela kukomisa Ntokozo ozawukwethula ke esona sithethu sibalulekileyo sanamhlanje, because thina sikhaphezele nje besitshilo xa besikhwaza apha sathi uyeza uFLOYD SHIVAMBU. Nanku ke phambi kwenu namhlanje, akekho useTVini, usephambi kwamehlo wenu. Komisa Ntokozo. Amandla.
Amandla. Amandla. Viva EFF, viva! Viva EFF, viva! Sikhokhele Julius Malema, sikhokhele! Sikhokhele Julius Malema, sikhokhele! Amandla! Ngobe seshilo ukuthi igama lami nginguNtokozo wakaHlonyana, umsebenzi wami mncane kakhulu. Umsebenzi wami ukuthi ngiphakamise uDeputy President. uDeputy President uyena owenza sure ukuthi eParliament siyilento esiyona. uDeputy President uyena enithi manifunda incwadi zethu zenhlangano. Yesithi uma sonke sithi sinesifiso sithi sifisa ukuthi sifane naye uDeputy President because ayikho into angayazi. Uthi noma esifundisa sihlale sithule kuthuleke because uthi uma ngabe ekhuluma akukhulume kuzwakala. Bayaba kaANC ngoba bayabona ukuthi iyanyuka iEFF iyakhula ngenxa kaDeputy President. Ngicela niphakame ngenyawo sonke sibingelele uDeputy President.
Ndinesazela isazela siyandizungezela sindizungezela enzuzobiyeni enzulwini sizasandenza ndazikisa ukucinga siyinzingo ezole enzulu ndizamla kusongoma izulu ndazilukhulu inzame ezozama ukuzonyula zezobuyatha isazela sizondelela izenzo izimbo zezisazela ziyandizulisa zizenzo nozakuzaku zizamela kwazo ziyazwabuluka ubunzulu inzozobiya yamazwi azole enzulu azanolwazi ngokukhazimla zithi mandizinanze izenzo zaso ingabalo yini na ulithando lithi la kufika kumlu urhwaqelo lwami ulwimi kuba lifike lagquba kwasaqhwithi ndingazama ukulibhebhetha liyandirhaxa emlonyeni ndingazama ukuchila azipheli inkambi emlonyeni ingabalo lithando na elilisiphathela amaqabane asazincopheni ngolu hlobo ingaba ndiyakubona.
Amandla. Viva EFF, viva. Viva the economic freedom fighters, viva. Long live the fighting spirit of Chris Hani, long live. Long live Julius Malema, long live. Amandla. Away, two. Thank you very much. Siyabulela kakhulu Komisan Togozo. Siyabulela chairperson of the province, CCT members and the people who came here today to celebrate the life and times of Martin Tembisile Hani. So English, so that we are able to reach out to everyone. And Chris Hani here in Sabalele village in Kofimbamba, in Ntikayetu where he was born. We celebrate him in Ntikayetu in one of the best performing sub-regions of the EFF in the region of Chris Hani. So as compared to Inakum Gijims of membership growth. So we must appreciate that. We have got a serious problem in a municipality called Enubaya Temba in Kredok. It is one of the only two municipalities here in the Eastern Cape where the EFF does not have a councillor. The other one is called Kokama. But we should change that. The leadership of the region is instructed and of the province to pay particular attention to the sub-region of Enubaya Temba. But also we want to pay tribute here in Ntikayetu because in this sub-region, the EFF had the eldest, the oldest councillor, public representative from this sub-region, Councillor Utata Lulama Mvo. He was a member of the EFF. He passed away at the age of 85 in 2020, in the year 2020. He joined the EFF when it was formed, so he's even older than Chris Hani. And Tatam Vo was the volunteer of the EFF, who later on became one of the first councillors of the EFF here in Ntikayetu municipality. And that is why maybe we are doing well, because he has been with us and he has left us now. So it's the first time that we get this opportunity to pay tribute as well to Tata Mvo, who has been with us in the EFF. Now we are here to pay tribute and to also celebrate Chris Hani because he is one of the most selfless revolutionaries. He was a dedicated and true soldier for the liberation of our people. And he was a disciplined combatant of the people of South Africa. He was fighting for true freedom. If Chris Hani was not killed on the 10th of April 1993, he would have lived to lead both the ANC and the country. Chris Hani would have been the president of South Africa. And if he had lived, Chris Hani would have prevented a lot of wrong things that are happening here in South Africa. If Chris Hani had lived, GIA would have not been adopted. If Chris Hani had lived, the senseless privatization of key state companies was not going to happen. If Chris Hani had lived, we would have had, even at university level, if things, healthcare was going to be the best in this country because he had a clear purpose. If Chris Hani was alive, our land would have been returned to the ownership of the people as a whole. Most of us do not know that in 1991, when Nelson Mandela was elected as a president of the ANC, Chris Hani was contesting against Thabo Mbeki to become deputy president. And then the leadership that time said, no, there must not be any contest. Both of you must withdraw. And then they chose Walter Sisulu to become deputy president, so that Thabo Mbeki does not contest Chris Hani. And I'm purposefully saying that, so that Thabo Mbeki does not contest Chris Hani. And then they both withdrew. And once they both withdrew, Walter Sisulu was confirmed as a deputy president. But when it went to voting for the additional members, at 1,858 votes, Chris Hani received the highest votes in that conference, sending a very clear signal that he was preferred by the membership of the ANC. There was no way anyone was going to defeat Chris Tembisile Hani as a leader of the former liberation movement. And despite the fact that he was the most popular leader, not just within the liberation movement, he was popular everywhere. He did not opportunistically say that he was going to stay within the ANC and focus in the ANC. He still went to accept a leadership responsibility in the South African Communist Party. And when Chris Hani took over the South African Communist Party, it had less than 2,000 members. The ANC, which he was voted to be #1 in additional members, had more than 700,000 members. But he chose to go and lead a smaller South African Communist Party in 1991. And he takes that decision against the fact that in the world, everyone in the world was celebrating that communism has collapsed because the Soviet Union, where communism was being practiced, had just collapsed into nothing. When people were celebrating the collapse of communism, Chris Hani said that I'm not going to stay here in a multi-class, multi-ideological, and possibly multi-directional organization. I'm going to lead a communist party. And within a very short space of time, was able to identify proper people to lead with him. And of course, the Communist Party is destroyed now. It is no longer a South African Communist Party. It is a South African careerist party, where those who are seeking to advance their careers go and join because they want to promote their self-interest. They want to make money for themselves. They do not want to serve our people. We already have said that Chris Hani was killed. The two people who were convicted by a court of law as having killed Chris Hani. One is Clive Debbie Lewis. The other one is Janusz Wanus from Poland. Janusz Wanus is the one who pulled the trigger on the 10th of April 1993. But when the trial was going on, Clive W. Lewis was discovered to have been the conspirator, the person who planned the murder of Chris Hani. At some stage, Clive W. Lewis was arrested, but he was later on released on parole from prison. And he did only one interview after that parole. And then when he was asked as to why did you kill Chris Hani, he said it's because Chris Hani was a hardline communist. He said he killed Chris Hani because he was so determined at all costs to achieve all his political aims. He said that Chris Hani was uncontrollable by the higher authorities of the ANC. He said that the reason we killed him is because also he was too popular with young people, with the youth. So the reason why Chris Hani was killed is the reason why we must celebrate him ourselves. It's the reason. Because it will only take a dedicated Marxist, Leninist, a communist revolutionary to could provide decisive leadership of this country. In the same manner in which the commander-in-chief is doing currently. It will take a dedicated leader who is willing to achieve clearly set political objectives. That is what Chris Hani stood for. It will need someone who will be able to connect with young people. They stopped Chris Hani because they were fearful of what he stood for. Do you know the 27th of April 1994 is the day of elections? But before Chris Hani was killed, there was no date for elections. The white apartheid regime, the government, was saying we cannot agree on a date if this man is still alive, because even if we can agree on sunset clauses, even if we can agree to sell out and do all sorts of things that is going to compromise black people, this man, there is no way he is not going to lead this country. He will reverse all this nonsense that we have agreed in Codesa. It was only after the murder of Chris Hani that the 27th of April was announced as the first date for democratic elections, or so-called democratic elections in South Africa. They might have killed his mortal beings. But we are saying as the EFF that we are not even having a single doubt that what we stand for as the EFF truly represents what Chris Hani stood for. Go and read and listen to all his speeches. Far much earlier, all the demands that the EFF is making is what Chris Hani, in the short period where he got to address the people, from 1990 to 1993, he would always stand up and say, We make no apologies that education must be free and compulsory for all. You will stand up and say, we make no apology that health care, quality health care, must be free and compulsory for all. He used to say that we make no apology that umhlaba must be given to the people so that they can self-sustain themselves. That is the Christian, and it is only the EFF that embodies and represents Christian. That is why we unapologetically come here in his birthplace to celebrate the 80th birthday of Emperor President of South Africa. Because we are talking about Christian here in Sabelele, it is important that we at least go through his biographical overview so that the young people of Sabelele, of Tsofimbamba, of Ntsikayetu, of Christian, of the Eastern Cape, of the whole of South Africa know whom we said we must pause to celebrate his birthday, despite the fact that he was shot and killed 29 years ago. So let us go through that, and patiently all of us must know that Chris Hani was born on the 28th of June 1942 here in this village of Sabelele. And his mother was Mary Nomaise Hani. His father was Gilbert Hendisi Hani. He went to school here in this region. He first enrolled in Zigudu Primary School, and then he studied in Sabalala Primary School. And at that time, when he went to school in 1950 at the age of 8, it is when the apartheid government was passing a law called the Suppression of Communism Act and had banned the Communist Party of South Africa in 1950. As in when he was going to school, the apartheid government, the Bantu Education Act, and then the former liberation movement then began to engage in a defiance campaign which sought to defy all the apartheid laws. In 1954, Chris Hani went to Mantanzima High School. So Mantanzima, named after the grandfather of K.D. Mantanzima, in the manner that it is. We went today to see here to pay our respect to the traditional leadership that happened. And in 1955, the Freedom Charter was adopted. In 1956, Chris Hani went to Lovedale College in Alice. So Alice is in Raymond Mhlaba municipality. That is where he went to Alice, to Lovedale College, where he got to be active and participated in politics. He then joined the ANC Youth League at the age of 15. Participate much more meaningfully. He was 15 years old. Before Alice, before Lovedale College, he used to be an altar boy in the Catholic Church. His aspirations was to become a pastor of the Word of God. And then he went to Alice. He got to be inspired to join the ANC Youth League in 1957. And what made Chris Hani to join the ANC Youth League is because in 1955, the Freedom Charter was adopted. When the Freedom Charter was adopted, it had very clear demands of what should happen in South Africa. Amongst the many demands and commitments of the Freedom Charter is the mineral wealth beneath the soil, the banks and monopoly industry shall be transferred to the ownership of the people as a whole. The Freedom Charter also says that all shall have the right to occupy land wherever they choose. The Freedom Charter also says that people shall not be robbed of their cattle and forced labor, and farm prisons shall be full unemployment benefits. The Freedom Charter also says there shall be a 40-hour working week, a national minimum wage, paid annual leave, and sick leave for all workers, and maternity leave on full pay for all working mothers. Almost all these aspirations of the Freedom Charter are still not achieved. But I'm mentioning the significance of the Freedom Charter in Chris Hani's life because it was the Congress movement's adoption of the Freedom Charter that led to the apartheid government to arrest almost all leaders of the liberation struggle. So almost everyone else who had a copy of the Freedom Charter and was standing by the Freedom Charter was arrested and charged with treason. So in the court cases of the treason trial, the exhibit number one, like evidence number one that was to prove treason, was a copy of the Freedom Charter. They said that these people want to overthrow the state. They want to overthrow a white government and replace it with a majority government. And these people who were arrested in the treason trial included Nelson Mandela, Archie Gumede, Yusuf Dadoo, Moses Kotane, Ruth First, Sonia Bunting, Reverend James Carter, Patrick Mulawa, who was at some stage a president of the ANC Youth League, Lillian Ngoyi, Duma Noko, Wilton Mkwai, Gert Sibande. And the Rivonia, no, not the Rivonia, the treason trial, when those people were being arrested in 1956, in 1957, inspired by the treason trial, Chris Hani says that I want to join this organization which these people are arrested for. I want to subscribe and associate with the ideas which these people are arrested for. Instead of running away that I want to go and become a teacher or a lawyer or a doctor, he volunteered himself that I want to join this organization which they are saying is illegal. At the age of 15, and then at the age of 20, he joined the Communist Party, which was a banned organization. A banned organization, it says that I want to associate, and the program that time of the South African Communist Party was when Chris Hani was already active. And part of the things that is that formal political independence alone will not ensure genuine independence of the African peoples and their equality amongst the nations of the world. Says just formal political independence is not adequate. This is what we say in the founding manifesto of the EFF, that just to have political power without economic power is meaningless. The road to South African freedom says that the former colonies remain tied by 1,000 bonds to their former owners. Through the British Commonwealth and the French community, powerful pressures are exerted to influence them and ensure their continued adherence to political, diplomatic, military, and economic systems of imperialism. But also, the road to South African freedom, which Chris Hani ascribed and believed in, said that it rejects a dogmatic distortion of Marxism the concept that African countries which are in a pre-capitalist stage of development must necessarily pass through a period of capitalism before achieving socialism. Says we're living in the epoch of the transition of at a world scale from capitalism to socialism. The experience of the People's Republic of China, of Vietnam, of Korea, of Mongolia show that it is possible in our time for the people of colonial countries to advance along non-capitalist lines towards building of socialism. So his understanding of a road towards socialism was not that he must build capitalism first. He said that anti-colonial movement must pursue a socialist struggle. I've already explained that age 15, Chris Hani joins the ANC clique. Age 20, he joins the South African Communist Party. Age 21, he is exiled to go and join Umkhonto weSizwe, to take up arms against the apartheid government. To say that there's been so many attempts to try to negotiate with these people. They are not hearing, now let us take up arms and fight for our freedom. There was no any activity in MK camps from 1960 when the MK was formed, a physical war in what was called, every time when he finishes to speak in rallies of the EFF, when he says Zipram Kondo Alliance. Zipram Kondo Alliance. He was referring to that alliance which Chris Hani was part of the Zimbabwean People's Revolutionary Army and Umkhonto weSizwe, which went to confront the Rhodesian government at that time. And the purpose was that after having confronted, go to confront the South African apartheid regime much more meaningfully. And then he was later on in that mission, physical military mission by the Botswana government. And then later on he was released, went to join the other camp of Umkhonto weSizwe in Tanzania. And then when he went back to Zambia, where he was based as a soldier, he then said to the leadership that time that there is no clarity here of what is happening. The Wanki happened in 1967, 1969. Chris comes back, he says that what is happening, and then there is something called the Hani Memorandum. In the Chris Hani Memorandum, which he wrote to complain about the leadership, he said that we as genuine revolutionaries are moved by the disintegration of Umkhonto weSizwe. And then he explained for self-benefit. Small group of elite and take them to London to study and act like they are cleverer than all of us. You are not training soldiers that are ready to confront the regime. He even says that we are disturbed by the careerism of the ANC leadership abroad. He confronted them, and they almost killed Chris Hani within MK camps. They said, you speak a lot. How can you criticize leadership like that? He was almost assassinated by his own organization. He decried that. He formed part of Lutulu detachment that went to confront the system directly. But when he came back, no one even asked for a report of how did it go? How do we do it better next time? That is what got to define Chris Hani. And then of course, that led to what is called a Morogoro Conference, which then began to clarify what are the tasks of a revolutionary movement that is in exile. What are the pillars of struggle? What should be engaged in to overthrow apartheid? So the force that got to lead to definition of clear path towards freedom was inspired by Martin Tembisile Chris Han. Out of physical action, out of what he got to referendum which was given to the leadership. In 1970, he was elected to the Central Committee of the Communist Party. And he was trained in the Soviet Union for 12 months. Proper training in the Soviet Union. And then he went to the German Democratic Republic as well for additional training. As a soldier, he was a trained soldier. And he used to say himself that, I have gone to university in Fort Hare. After Alice, he went to Fort Hare. He says, I've got a degree which was issued by Rhodes University. Because at that time, Fort Hare was not allowed to issue out degrees. He says that I can opportunistically go and want to stay in London as well, like others are staying in London. But I am here in the camps with the soldiers because we must devise a way of fighting for the freedom of our people. That is why we say Chris Hani was a true soldier, a dedicated combatant, a true fighter for both political and economic emancipation of our people. On several occasions, there were attempts to assassinate Chris Hani. He set up a lot of underground structures in the war against apartheid. He recruited and trained a lot of soldiers. So that is the Chris Hani that we are celebrating. What Chris Hani embodies is part of what is contained in the EFF's principles of organizational democracy. And what are those principles? Is selflessness, loyalty to the organization, and love for one another. Those that interacted with Chris Hani, whether it's MK soldiers and fellow organizational members, he knew each and everyone else by name. In the camps, he knew everyone and where they came from, because he understood that as revolutionaries who must love one another. He was guided by discipline and hard work. He was guided by democratic centralism as well. You know, Chris Hani rose in the MK camps to become chief of staff. Chief of staff in an army is the third ranking officer of the army of Mkhonto weSizwe. But in the process of negotiations, in the talks before talks, Nelson Mandela announced the dissolution of MK without having consulted MK soldiers. Chris went to say, this is unacceptable, but because the leadership has spoken, we'll have to live with that decision. Went to go and speak to MK soldiers in different parts of South Africa, but let us trust the leadership on this one. I'm not happy with the decision, but let us subject ourselves to the principle of democratic centralism. What do we learn from Chris Hani? We learn a proper understanding of what socialism is. Chris Hani says that socialism is not about big concepts and heavy theory. Socialism is about decent shelter for those who are homeless. It is about water for those who have no safe drinking water. It is about health care. It is about life of dignity for the old. It is about overcoming the huge divide between rural and urban areas. It is about a decent education for all our people. Socialism is about rolling back the tyranny of the market as long as the economy is dominated by an unelected privileged few, the case for socialism will always exist. That is why we characterize the nature of the economic freedom that we are fighting for as the EFF as a socialist economic freedom. We want to achieve dignity for the old. We want to see quality education, quality health care for all our people. That is why we unapologetically associate with Chris Hani and say he was a true soldier, a dedicated revolutionary, and a fighter for economic freedom. We say that without any doubt, because this is what Chris Hani represented. But he also said that what he fears the most, he says, what I fear is that the liberators emerge as elitists who drive around in Mercedes-Benz and use the resources of this country to live in palaces to gather riches. So what that means, this is what Chris Hani says. I'm quoting Chris Hani directly. He says, what I fear is that the liberators, or the so-called liberators, who drive around in Mercedes-Benzes and use the resources of this country to live in palaces. In Kanda, we had to demand that money back as the EFF when we got to parliament. We were able to say that the government resources can be used to build a palace for a president. And it is us as the EFF who got that money to be paid back to the fiscals. But another palace is in Palapal. The riches are being gathered there by a criminal president. I think the people of Sabalele must appreciate that, must come to the acknowledgement that we have got a criminal who is a head of state of South Africa today. We've got a thug, a conman, a trickster who is leading this country with millions of dollars hidden under mattresses, millions of dollars under sofas everywhere. That is what we're faced with, and that is not Christian. Christian would have never done what this thug that is leading this country is doing. That is why we take a script from Chris Hani as the EFF and say, we will never permit, we will never allow Ramaphosa to vandalize our country. We will never allow of our revolutionary mechanisms and system. I can tell you now that when we go back to parliament and put a motion of no confidence there, Ramaphosa will not come back alive there. He will not be a president. And it will even be better if we remove him through a motion of no confidence, because when we remove you through a motion of no confidence, we cancel your pension, we cancel the police, we cancel everything that you had as a president. We will even delete his name as a former president of South Africa. We'll just say from 2018 to 2022, there was a vacancy. There was no president because we've got a thug that is running this country. We are our own liberators. That is the lesson that we learned from Chris Hani. That the people must liberate themselves. We must not think that there is a liberator who is going to come from elsewhere. But ourselves, all of us as revolutionaries, we should at all times aspire to be like Chris Hani. We must serve the movement selflessly. We must not always look for money opportunities. If your obsession as a leader is to make money for yourself, you must know that you are nowhere close to being like Chris Hani. I can tell you, fighters, that even if it's 5 people who have got the same qualities and dedication as Chris Tembisile Martin Hani, we are going to take this country far much bigger in Liberia, in Nigeria, in Ghana, with 5 Chris Hanis. That is why we call on you that what are the qualities that define Chris Hani must define all of us. Push to confront the regime with very few bullets. Says, I'm going to confront the entire regime. And he was humble. You know, like, if you check all, was a Randaville where there was not even a bed there. A person who got the highest votes in a conference of the ANC will go to the deepest corners and say, let us mobilize our people into action. In Carltonville, he went to address the workers. He stayed with mine workers. Everywhere he went, Kanyamazan, everywhere he went, he always inspired confidence. So all of us, let us continue to celebrate Chris Tembisile Hani. And I'm Martin Hani is the name of his brother. When he left the country, he left as Chris Hani. And then when he was putting the structures underground, he had to take the name of Chris is the name of his brother. His name is Martin Tembisile Hani. And then he took the name of Chris so that he can be able to operate in setting up structures, underground structures to fight against apartheid. Apartheid was collapsed because of the contribution of Chris Hani. That is why we come back here in Sabalele and pray that maybe they can. Let us have another Chris Hani who will inspire confidence and lead